someday could not shut down. And greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to announce that the opinions and comments expressed by members of our panel do not necessarily represent that of this station or our sponsor or anybody else. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to welcome you. And from the John DeVita Broadcast Center, located in an entirely undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, and perhaps even a few blocks beyond the boundaries of the fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting another sterling edition of our monthly round table panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. We have submitted for your approval this program for the month of November, the 11th month in this year of our Lord 2016. And now, here's the man who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, John. From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, November the 21st, the year 2016. Today, the panel will be talking about Thanksgiving, then and now, and how we celebrate Thanksgiving with our families and friends. So sit back and enjoy Meet the Chicago Historians. And now, to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. John.
And thank you very much, John. This is John Escacholco, regularly a member of the panel, but today I'm sitting in for our standard announcer, Rich Lang, whom I always like to say has a great voice for radio. He can't be with us today, so I'll be subbing as your announcer. And now, substituting for our regular panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan. Please understand that the red part does not reflect his political point of view. Here is our guest host for today, the one and only Tom McKenna.
All right, okay. Hold your applause till the end. It's me, Tom McKenna, lifelong friend of our normal moderator here, and one of the few people that actually admits to the fact that I am a lifelong friend of Jack Red Ryan.
You said normal?
And you said normal. I picked up on that too.
That's right.
He hasn't been normal in years.
In the city of Chicago, that's one of the strangest parts about the city, having a street named Normal run through Canaryville. but anyway, I digress. I digress. So we're here, and again, I spoke with John Ryan. He is at home recuperating. He's a bit under the weather, and hopefully by our next broadcast he'll be back behind the golden microphone that I have the honor of sitting behind today. It is Monday, November 21st, the year 2016. We are having some warm weather for this time of year. Normally in Chicago, at this time we've had some free. Well, I guess we did have a couple days below zero so far, maybe last night being one of them. But we've been lucky weather-wise. But the problem is we know what's coming. And as John said, our topic today is going to be Thanksgiving. But let's do what we always do here. Let's start out with a little roundtable introduction. Let's go clockwise today. To my left, please introduce yourself and sign in, please.
Am I on your left?
Yeah.
That's
right.
I
thought you were right. Bill Kugelman, retired from the Chicago Fire Department, and I also am very active with the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, of which I will mention now. Next, is it the 26th?
I think it
we
is.
have open house at 5218 Southwestern. It's an old firehouse that was abandoned and given to us by
Alderman Ed Burke. Thank you, Ed. And please, from 10 to 2 on that Saturday, we will have open house. Bring a camera, bring the kids, and we'd be glad to see you. And now to my left is, are you a leftist?
Well, I'm not to the left of anyone. No one in existence could it be said that I am to their left. But geographically, yeah, I am to your left. And I'm John Escachoco. I'm serving today as our substitute announcer for our good friend Rich Lang, who is also a bit under the weather, underwent some treatment recently, but we hope that Rich is doing well and will be back again next month. Rich does reenactments of radio shows and I'm sure does an outstanding job. I'm John Escachoco. I was in Illinois state government and town government in Cicero and had the privilege for a short time, too short of a time, to be on the old WJJG radio where John DeVita was the station manager and enjoyed doing that very much. And it's great that we're continuing the tradition of Meet the Chicago Historians.
Yeah, very good. And I am Ken Little, and I'm also like under the weather too. I don't like the cold. Who does, right? But I've had 83 of them. In another couple of weeks, I'll be 84. So
Hear, hear.
Yeah. And I was in the fire alarm for 35 years. I used to give Chief Kugelman a few runs after midnight.
Thank you.
And then I taught Chicago history at Wright College for 20 years and really enjoyed that. I'm not really an educator, but I had a bunch of senior citizens who were. and you know, like the old song says, getting to know you, you know, getting to know your pupils and they get to know you. So I really enjoyed it. And we go back to our moderator.
Well, before I forget it, the first person that introduced himself, Bill Kugelman, for those of you that know or don't know or remember, Bill's son, John, an Illinois State Trooper, was killed in the line of duty, and recently we had a ceremony.
Yeah.
Bill, would you like to speak?
Well, yes, after 30 years, November 10th of 1986, the state of Illinois passed legislation that they put up a sign, really a big sign, at the intersection of I-290 and I-355 in John's memory. They dedicated that to him. 30 years, and it was to the date, November 10th, and almost to the time. But they did this at the Itasca Firehouse, which is right there. They emptied it, and this was, and I've heard this from a lot of people, a lot of big names that were there, that they have never been to a ceremony that was classier than this. They really did. State police did a great job, and their union, the FOP, Lodge 41, and the Itasca Fire Department, and it was great. There were politicians, judges, people coming in from really all over the country that knew John, and it couldn't make me more proud than to have something like this done in his honor, in his name. It was, like I say, Tom, it was really nice, really nice. I don't know how I could, I don't even remember a lot of the people that were there.
Yeah.
But my thanks to all of them for coming. The procession of cars was 1.5 miles long.
Wow.
Going from the Itasca Firehouse after the ceremony to where the sign was put up, and they shut down. A lot of people were probably very, very teed off, but they shut down the roads,
Yeah.
290 and 355, so that we would go right through, lights and siren,
Sirens, yeah.
and it was quite a ceremony, quite a procession. Like I say, Tom, I'm very proud, very proud.
Well, that's really great. I know, speaking as a retired Chicago police officer, I'd like to thank you for sharing your son with us for the short time that he did. And John, if you're looking down on us, thank you for your service, my brother. And just a word to all of the people that are listening to this show. Never forget the law enforcement officers and firefighters and emergency personnel that give their lives, now it seems almost like on a daily basis,
Yeah.
to protect you and your families.
We had several gunned down over the weekend.
Yeah.
In San Antonio.
Yeah.
I think there were 4, John. Yeah.
You know, now
And they were just sitting in the car writing a ticket.
Yeah.
right now that you
One
brought
was right
that
in
up,
front of the police headquarters,
Yeah.
I think,
Right.
one in San
we
Antonio.
usually start off with some current events. So since you brought it up, let's talk about that for a while. I know I've been retired. Well, I guess it's almost 14 years now, and I can never remember in the history. I went on the job in 1968 of a rash of police shootings that are occurring
No. Never
in
happened
this
before.
country. And I personally, I blame it on the mood and the attitude of this country over the last 8 years, that the administration and the Justice Department has given an attitude, a broadcast that the police are the enemy.
Right. They're the problem.
Right,
Yeah.
the police are the problem, and hopefully, we're going to talk about our presidential election a little bit later, but right now, I think that it's an absolute disgrace of what's happened over the last 8 years. The deterioration, the respect for law and law and order. This is a nation of laws, and without laws, we have anarchy. I know there's a lot of people marching in the streets right now that might think that that's a great idea, but it's not. Some thoughts on what you think the reasons for this?
I agree with you, Tom. And when I was growing up, and it's 80 years ago, the cop on the corner, I hate to be. I don't think I'm racist, but it was always a big Irish copper on the corner.
Yeah.
And you'd say, "Hi, Mr. Murphy. Hi, Officer
Sure.
Murphy. How are you?" And you just respected them. And when they went by, I remember in school, if a fire truck or a police car went by with the siren, what do?
You stop
You
and
say
pray.
a prayer.
Yeah.
You say a prayer, at least the sign of the cross.
Yeah.
No, it's unbelievable.
Well, another.
And you know what I say when the thing for a policeman or a fireman, if they are killed on duty, it's an LODD.
Yeah.
It's that's a thing, and it's
Duty day.
I say to people that want to know from me, well, oh, your son died on duty? I said, no, he didn't die on duty. He was murdered on duty.
He's
Right.
murdered.
Yeah, he was murdered on duty.
Yeah.
And I blame the judiciary. And Judge Zagel was at the ceremony. He was the director of the state police when Johnny went on.
Yeah.
And I've known the judge, Jim, is quite a great guy. And I've mentioned to him, it's the judiciary. This guy only spent 13 years in jail for murdering
Yeah.
a Illinois state trooper,
Yeah.
no matter who he was.
Yeah.
It should be an automatic life sentence.
Yeah.
And I thought we had it. I thought we had passed that law, but I guess not.
No.
That it just isn't being dealt with in the courts.
And that's only because we don't have the death penalty now in Illinois, thanks
Yeah.
thanks to our two previous governors.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know,
I tell you what, with that death penalty, John, when this punk was in jail, I was hoping that he'd get AIDS. You know, a lot of people, oh, that's terrible. No, I was hoping he would. You know, spending the rest of your life in jail, to me, is worse than
Oh yeah.
taking his life
Sure.
and executing him.
Yeah.
You know, let him suffer.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of my family's suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had kids come in from my nieces and that from far away as Flagstaff
Yeah.
and from Florida for this. They just couldn't understand.
Yeah.
Just couldn't understand it. When they, you know, when I got up, I didn't talk for that long. I mean, I can talk for hours, but hell, I was president of a union. I said, you know, I couldn't be up there for hours, but I thought after the rest of them, I didn't want to hog the phone. I came up with why John went on the police department. When I was in charge of the security for the Illinois racetrack police, I had 6 IBI agents with me, and 2 of them were still there. They came to the ceremony, and they when I started running this state police, Illinois Bureau of Racetrack Police, I said, I need help. So they sent these 6 IBI agents to me. I said, here you go. None of them knew the front end of the horse from the back end, you know, and we're the racetrack police.
Yeah.
And so they would ask, they met Johnny, and he was just about raised with horses. He had his own, and, you know, I had horses. Whenever they'd have to do something, hey, is John going to be in school today? Or we need him. We got to have him. You know, they putting a camera in the stall somewhere. Oh, we can't go in there. There's a horse in there. Oh, yeah. That's great. But that's how he got interested in the police.
I know he was always interested.
And he, well, I tell you, Ken, I found out later after he died that they were going to dedicate in Bourbonnais, the state police have I guess they call it an academy, a training, and one of the things he was going to be on like a SWAT, they call it something else, a SWAT team, and they have to go up on this tower and then, what do they call it, slide down?
Rappel.
Rappel down and
yeah.
that. Well, he flunked it.
Oh,
He was afraid of
heights.
heights.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's a good thing he didn't come in the fire department. you
Yeah.
know, if he was afraid of heights. And I didn't know about it. I helped him put a roof on a place that he had up there in Island Lake. And it was just a storage place and needed a new bunch of shingles. And I get them. He got them. I went out, put a ladder up. It was only 14 feet.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah.
It wasn't that tall. And humped a couple of bundles of shingles up, and I got done with them, and I said, hey, come on. I'm not going to get up and down and be carrying these things, you jerk. Get up here with me. Oh, okay, Dad. You know, that explained it. He was afraid of heights. That was my thing there. We were very proud of that.
You remind me of a story. I remember a World War II veteran that I knew years ago who said that during the war they were going to assign him to submarine duty until he told them that he liked to sleep with the windows open.
Very good, John. I don't think I'd make it down there in a submarine either.
No, not.
Oh, we have I've just been informed by our technical expert, John DeVita, that we have a phone call coming in. We have Jack Red Ryan, our regular host and moderator.
Jack, are you there? Yes, hello. Are you there, Jack?
I is here.
Yes. This is your lifelong friend, Tom McKenna.
And he admits it.
I am sitting behind the golden microphone, and I was informed.
How do you feel?
And I was informed that it's not solid gold; it's only gold plated. So it's
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
the great honor was slightly diminished. So how are you feeling?
Oh, well, I'm feeling pretty well, thank you. I went
You
to
sound
a
terrible.
couple weeks ago.
You sound terrible,
Which
John.
is a little better than he usually sounds.
Yeah,
right.
So what are you doing? What's your course of recuperation?
Well, I've been doing a little writing, and
I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying you were doing a little running.
No, I haven't done that in a long time. I ran a temperature for a while though.
Oh,
But yeah, I've been catching up on some of the stuff that you catch in your DVR. I got to watch some movie with Leah and Arrow the other day and yesterday, and that's how I was. When I was in the hospital at one time, I was really I had my days all mixed up. I was awake at night watching on Channel 11. I was watching Out and Proud in Chicago on late night, and so it was kind of programming was kind of.
Are you planning on making an announcement, or?
Pardon me?
Are you planning on making an announcement?
I'm home.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I'm not announcing.
Yeah, no, you said you were watching the Out and Proud.
Yeah, I know. That's how hard up I was.
Yeah, right. Well,
So anyway, any guys talk about the election a little bit and post-election stuff?
right. We were just got through. We were talking about the ceremony for Illinois State Trooper Sergeant John Kugelman.
Yeah, Bill.
And, right,
Bill,
and Bill. Yeah, Bill
You there,
just
Bill?
Bill just told us about how the ceremony went and how great it was and what a great honor.
I know
honor it
Channel
was.
7 covered it. They had a real brief little bit, but they did cover it.
Yeah, they did, Jack, and then they had the Sun Times had an article. Oh,
they did.
it's it was a nice article.
Yeah.
Very classy, very classy.
Yeah.
Right, and
Well,
then
God bless you, and God bless his memory.
right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Then we were started to segue into all the rash of police shootings, ambushes, outright murders, and the reason, like I said, we went on the job. I went on in 1968, and I've been retired now almost 14 years, and I never remember anything like this. This is
No, and 68 was the worst year on record then. Remember?
right.
For Chicago policemen killed. I remember. Well, you and I worked with Joe Ferguson. He got killed, and John Gilhooly and Wendell Hicks. We worked with all those guys in
Right.
two.
Yeah.
And
It's like the
these
Wild
six
Wild.
guys that I worked with on the job.
It's like the Wild Wild West,
Well,
Jack. Just I mean, there just is no.
Well, we were talking
Respect.
about our mayor that said talking about the sanctuary cities, and he said that he wants that he's not going to honor the wishes of the new administration to do away with sanctuary cities, and he also wants to know that everyone in Chicago is going to be safe.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was that's an excellent, excellent statement.
Really, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great statement in juxtaposition of what's actually going on, isn't it?
Right.
You'll be safe here. We'll save you from those bad feds.
When you hear about the city of Chicago, the first thing that pops into your mind is not that you're going to be safe there.
No.
Yeah.
Right. That illegals are going to be safe. No, that's not the
Yeah.
first thing that you think about.
Yeah. And then they just, I know they just talked about all the guns that were seized, and that's a great thing. But someone has to realize one thing. I think maybe you would probably agree, Tom, that majority of the guns that are seized are actually seized from people who are carrying them for no other reason that they're afraid not to have the gun with them.
Right.
What's the old saying? Better be caught with it than without it.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, the bad guys, they'll have them no matter what.
One of the guys at the police mass last Sunday said that and we were talking about the same thing, said that a lot of those guns, he says, in fact, the majority of them are brought in by people that have probably had them in the attic for 50 years, and they were just keeping them from, Grandpa Sal or somebody, and they figured, hey, what do they give them, $100?
Right.
$100 credit card, and so they aren't getting them from the mob guys or
from the bad guys.
From the bad guys, no.
Didn't they used to call, like in the old West, sanctuary cities, somewhere like hole in the wall where all the outlaws went to be safe,
Right. Well, talking about mayors, the mayor of New York, he was upset about the money that it was costing to protect our new president-elect, the overtime for police pay. But they had plenty of money to protect illegals. There was no shortage of funds there. But I mean,
when Barack Obama visits Chicago, I don't recall Mayor Emanuel complaining about the amount of money it would cost for special police security for him. I don't. He may be mad. I don't recall him saying anything.
Supposedly, the rally that was held in Grant Park, the Obama Fest.
Yeah.
Supposedly that cost $1.6 million, and Obama said he was going to pay for it. I guess we're still waiting for the check.
Check to clear it.
Yeah, you never did.
Well, the check's in the mail, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, it's just strange what we can complain about in that. I've said this to you. Tom and I were talking not long ago. Why can't we have a cool mayor here like Giuliani?
Yeah, well, we can think back to the old days of the original Mayor Daley.
Yeah.
Where some of the absolute classic comments, they're all popping through my head now, but one of them that always stuck out as one of my favorites, dealing with the news media, when they were questioning this is the original Mayor Daley, when they asked him about corruption in politics and corrupt politicians, and he said, sure. He said, now this is at a news conference. He said, sure, there's corrupt politicians. There's corrupt newsmen, too. As a matter of fact, I could spit on a couple from here.
I remember that. What?
You got to love a guy like that.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You can criticize and look, like we all have our faults, even I do. And but you can criticize and take them apart. The one thing about Richard J. was he loved Chicago. Period.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
He's a great man. He's a great man and a great mayor.
And he knew what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still there?
Oh yeah, we're still there.
You lose me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knew.
hear
Well, that was one of the reasons why he didn't want any television and shows and movies filmed in the city of Chicago, because he was afraid that the city was going to be portrayed in a negative light.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons.
Yeah, filmed here, right? You're right.
Yeah.
By the way, have you watched Chicago PD? What is it on? Is it on
Wednesday nights.
Wednesday nights, and the Chicago police chaplain had a little segue on there.
Father Brandt.
Father Dan Brandt. And,
he's a great guy.
Yeah, he came on there, and he didn't have any words, but he put his hand on a woman's shoulder, to console her.
Well, he's been known to put his hands on women. That's what
So the real police chaplain did a cameo on the TV show as the police chaplain.
Yes, he did.
Oh, that's great.
And I sent him an email. I said, your act there, your cameo appearance, it was not going to be for an Oscar, but it might do for some Alpo, some dog bit that. And he's a great guy. Great guy. Well,
Yeah.
Tom, you should know him very well.
He is a great. You have to be a special kind of person to be a chaplain in the Chicago Police Department. And they found, the chaplain he replaced,
Tom Nangle.
Tom Nangle was a great guy, and everyone was wondering if they were going to find someone to fill his shoes, and they sure did with Father Dan Brandt.
They sure did.
Okay, looks like we're coming up on a break here.
Tell Jack to stay on.
Yeah, John, stay on the line, please.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
step on it, John.
Okay, and now we'll have a brief intermission as we discuss Thanksgiving then and now.
Do you suffer from pain? Do you know someone that has constant pain of their low back, neck, shoulder, knee, or wrist? Have they tried medications, exercise, physical therapy, or chiropractic, and nothing seemed to make it better? Well, I may have your answer. Why not try a napropath? Hi everybody, this is Dr. Wayne Chickowitz, and I've been practicing 30 years treating pain. I'm board certified and hold a diplomate in pain management. For your convenience, we have 2 locations. In Cicero, 3602 South 61st Avenue, 708-656-7000, or in Villa Park at 122 West St. Charles Road, Suite 1A, 630-833-4007. Why not try a napropath and stop the pain today?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Meet the Chicago Historians. Our topic today is Thanksgiving then and now, but we're doing a little bit of our regular discussion of current news events. So here is our host, Tom McKenna.
All right, we're back. Let's get right on it. We had a very momentous election recently. What was it? Last week? Has it been that long?
Well, the 8th now.
Actually, yeah.
Now, here's my take on the election. The news media, the experts, the pundits, these people have the finger on the pulse of our nation. When Donald Trump, who is our newly elected, for those of you that have been living under a rock for the last week, our new president-elect, Donald Trump, from the time Donald Trump announced till the time he was elected, and I guess it will be until the time he's sworn in, the experts have been 100% wrong on every single aspect of the Trump campaign. 100% wrong. First, they said that, well, he's just doing this on a lark. He doesn't intend to actually run. That was wrong. Then they said he will be trounced in the debates.
Primaries.
He debated, I think, with 16 other people originally,
Right.
or they split it into 2 groups anyway. They were completely wrong. They said during the primary he wouldn't win one state. They were completely wrong. There were experts before the Republican National Convention that it had charts, graphs. I remember one standing in front of one of the graphs showing that there is no possible way, it is totally impossible for Donald Trump to win the nomination on the first ballot. A total impossibility. Completely wrong. Then we got into the election, and watching the election and the election returns, they had, well, first of all, they had Hillary winning the week before the election. There was no way, I believe, I want to say the New York Times, but maybe it wasn't. On the day of the election, they gave Donald Trump a 3% chance of winning the election. Now, here's my question. If you're classified as an expert, how many times do you have to be wrong about a certain issue before you switch from the expert to the idiot? I mean, these people, and now even after he's elected, president-elect, they are still talking about there's actually another expert that was talking about, well, when they poll the electoral votes, there still is a possibility that he won't get enough, that they'll switch. They'll switch.
Yeah,
there.
that's the latest thing they're talking about, persuading electors to switch. When you said that they're taking the pulse of the nation, they must have been taking the pulse of one of the mannequins in the windows of Macy's downtown.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because
Well,
they weren't getting any reading.
The New York, two females on one New York television station, they were shocked, and the one said to the other, "And I can't believe it because I don't even know one Trump supporter."
The weekend before the election, on all the Sunday morning talk shows, they were just having a great time discussing how big of a landslide Hillary was going to win, how far over 300 electoral votes she was going to win, and of course, and they didn't have any problem with the Electoral College then when they were telling us how she was going to win all these battleground states, North Carolina, and she's way ahead in Pennsylvania and Michigan. They didn't seem to have any problem at all with the Electoral College.
They sure do now.
And she was going to take the Senate. I mean, the Democrats were going to take, and they were even looking at the House. I mean, they had a chance of even turning the House. And
the down ticket. The Republicans when there was another thing that they were wrong about. They said the Republican candidates that are running for office in the down ticket, the representatives and the state people, that they were so upset because they were going to be dragged down.
And remember all those lines of people that were just waiting for hours to vote for Hillary? I mean, the media knew they were all voting for Hillary.
Of course.
I mean, why would they stand in line if they weren't voting for Hillary? I watched CBS on election night, and Charlie Rose, his face was so long that if it had gotten any longer, it would have spilled over into the NBC broadcast booth. I mean, it was just one of the late night talk show hosts said that all these anchors, they looked like the kid who begins to realize that nobody's coming to his birthday party. That's how just absolutely depressed they all. They started off, they were in high spirits. When you turned them on, they were all looking forward to this big landslide. And then it was like, what's happening here? I mean, did they ever call Florida? I wonder, did they ever finally get around? I mean, there was 100% of the vote in Florida, and they still hadn't called it. They still said that it's too close to call in Florida.
They knew that was one of the key states that Trump had to win, and they knew
that would have been the dominoes would all topple then.
Yeah, it's.
And now they're saying that the reason Trump won is because all of the white women voters,
racist,
voted for Trump because they liked them.
And Hillary was she was gonna just clean up with women voters.
Oh,
remember before? Oh God, she was all those polls. She was so many points ahead. It just didn't turn out. It just didn't turn out.
When black voters turned out for Obama, it was a wonderful, inspirational message.
Oh yes, yeah.
When white voters turned out for Trump, they were racist,
bigotry, and hate.
Yeah. Plus, no one ever called Donald Trump a racist or a sexist or homophobic until he ran for president.
When he was a Democrat for a long. Nobody ever said he was a racist then.
No.
I mean, it's funny. I guess it just when he changed parties, it just goes with being a Republican. You become a racist.
John, are you still on the line?
I am here.
Oh, your thoughts?
Well, it was as you said. I was watching even on I was watching Fox and a few others, and coming up to, I get depressed just watching, as you said, these guys talking about how he may have a path and what he has to do to get a path to it. As if he were just already lost. So many, as we call them, experts.
When Trump had about 240 electoral votes, it must have been about 11 or 11:30 at night. Charlie, I'm just focusing on Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose said he turned to John Dickerson, their local pundit, and he said, "Well, John, if Trump were to carry Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, could that maybe give him a shot at winning the presidency?" And I thought, yeah, if you win 50 more electoral votes and you got 240 and you only need 270, yeah, that would give you a shot at being elected. You'd have a chance of being elected, yeah.
But now the Electoral College
that's terrible.
system is
it's
out.
Just horrible,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
It was great when Barack Obama was winning big majorities in the elect. They didn't have any problem with the Electoral College then. It's a wonderful thing.
Isn't it amazing that our founding fathers, when they set up the Electoral College, it shows, how smart they were, that something like that. And I mean, I can see it, the reason for it, because at the time the state of New York would have elected every president. So to do what they did, how many years ago was it? And it still holds true today. What a good idea it was.
The idea was that the president should be a national official. He should have a mandate from as much of the country as possible. And remember, we're the United States of America. The idea of the Electoral College is to give the states a voice in the president. And another thing, Trump won the popular vote in 30 states. You don't get electoral votes by pulling names out of a hat. He won the popular vote in 30 states. Those electoral votes are based on popular vote.
Well, plus I like his comment. He said, well, if that was the case, I would have just campaigned in Florida and California and New York, and I would have won. I would have won bigger.
Yeah.
But people that don't understand how the Electoral College works, and that it's like in a football game. I mean, the team that gets the most yardage rushing doesn't win the game.
Right.
It's the team that puts the most points on the board, however you get them.
Or the team that scores the most runs doesn't necessarily win the World Series.
Well, that was another point that someone brought up. They said if that was the case in the last World Series, Cubs and Cleveland both scored the same amount of runs.
Yeah.
So it should have been a tie.
And here's another little sidelight. I just happened to, Rush Limbaugh made this point. You know who one of the greatest exponents of the Electoral College was amongst the founding fathers? Alexander Hamilton.
Really?
Alexander Hamilton is sometimes called the father of the Electoral College.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Someone could have told those clowns on Broadway that maybe they ought to do a little bit of research on the man that they're celebrating.
This morning they were talking about that. Of course, that was the big topic about what they tried to embarrass Pence at the Hamilton show the other night, and it came out that when they put and I can't think of the word for it, when they were looking for people to play and to be
When
the
they were
actors
casting.
in the
Casting,
Hamilton,
casting.
that the casting call was for anybody but whites.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
is that not racist?
Yeah, oh, sure.
Anybody
actor-
but whites. I didn't realize that myself. I
That's
thought
the
there
sort
was
of
a
thing
lot,
wasn't
but they are. They're all minorities.
Yeah.
The actor that read the prepared statement,
He
which
played
I thought,
Aaron Burr.
which I thought was for an actor to have to read his lines from. I mean, that's kind of a no-no for an actor. He couldn't even memorize that short speech. But he was on some news program, and he said, "Well, I think it was important to open up a conversation." His idea of a conversation and mine are two
One way.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Standing up and reading a prepared statement and talking down to someone as they're walking out
Yeah.
is not is not my idea of a conversation.
It's a classic definition of a captive audience. He came there to be entertained. He didn't come there to listen to a lecture.
Yeah.
And if this guy wants to give a speech on politics, he should rent a hall and announce that he's going to give a
Yeah.
speech on politics.
Let
you
him
know.
go out on the
Yeah.
street
Yeah.
or something.
People didn't come there to hear his political views.
One thing that they still can't get over the idea that they are searching for the reason why Donald Trump won.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is look at what they are continuing doing is the main reason why Donald Trump won.
The
'Cause
arrogance of
people
these
are
people.
fed up with the arrogance. You know, I was watching when Mike Pence went back to the Capitol as the vice president elect. He was walking through the tunnel, and there were some Capitol police officers there, and Mike Pence made it a special effort to walk over and shake hands
I saw that.
with
yeah.
the police officers.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
The last administration, they wouldn't stoop
No.
to shake hands with a police officer? Are you kidding me?
Tom, you told me this before, but why don't you tell our audience the Pence people that are from
Yeah,
Chicago?
the uncle that Mike Pence talks about as a Chicago police officer. He was John and I both knew him.
Oh, wow.
It was Phil Pence. I didn't know if that was true or not, but then I saw on one of the social media pages, they said, "Is that Phil Pence, the uncle that Mike Pence is talking about?" And they said, "Yes, it is." Phil Pence's claim to fame was he was Harold Washington's only white pallbearer. Phil was on the bodyguard detail for Harold Washington, and when Harold
that
Washington,
is the same guy.
yeah, and when Harold Washington was buried, Phil was the only white pallbearer
Wow.
for Mayor Washington.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good
Okay, if I
connection.
go,
What's that?
I gotta leave.
Are you through? You're leaving us, John?
Listen, hey, John, Kate
Yeah.
is really missing you. She can't figure out who this guy is sitting in your seat here.
But he did say he's a personal friend of yours, and
That's right.
John, have a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving. I
Yeah.
think
Thank
we
you,
all wish
everybody
you that.
too, you know,
Yeah,
okay.
thanks, John.
You too,
Take
Jay.
care.
Okay.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, like I say, the experts are searching for the reason why they just can't understand, and plus it seems like they were shocked to learn that white men that didn't go to college are actually entitled to vote.
It's amazing. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's shocking.
Here's the thing that bothers me. They've been pounding on this idea that Trump's vote came from non-college educated whites,
Right.
and that's of course is intended to discredit. The implication is that these people aren't very bright.
Yeah.
Now, why do they never talk about the educational background of people who vote Democrat? I mean, Hillary gets an awful lot of votes, and I don't believe that every one of those people has a master's degree, let alone a BA or anything else. I mean, if you look at the educational statistics from some of the constituencies that vote straight down the line for Democratic candidates, their record isn't all that good in terms of advanced education. Why is it only the white voters that they talk about whether or not they're college educated?
I loved it when somebody, and I don't remember who it was had to be a reporter, went out on the street with these mopes that are marching, against this election, and she came back and she said, "Well, half these people didn't even vote.
Didn't even
Oh, yeah.
vote.
You know,
The people in
they didn't
Salem.
even vote.
Yeah.
They did. I think it
They're
was
just out there, and it's been
Raising
proven
hell.
that they are paid
Or
Oh,
even if
right.
they're
people
not, they're,
You
that are
someone did a check. Was it Portland, Oregon, where I guess somebody went in and actually checked and found out the great majority of the ones that were arrested for
Yeah.
engaging, none of them had voted. None were even. I don't think they were even registered to
exactly.
vote, let alone had voted.
70% didn't vote. But
Yeah.
you talk about educational levels. They did an interview with people waiting in line for a Bernie Sanders event. Oh, that's another thing. The experts, again, getting back to the experts that have their
Bernie
finger
would
on
have
the
beat him.
right. Bernie
would have beat him. Yeah.
Bernie would have beaten
Same
Trump.
people who said Hillary was going to
Right.
beat him.
But yeah, right. But anyway, like I said, when does the expert line cross into the idiot line? But they did an interview with some of Bernie Sanders' younger voters, looked like they were college age, probably college students, maybe college graduates, and there were three young men and a young female, and they asked about socialism. And they said, "Are you in favor of socialism?" Could you give us a short definition? Well, the three guys wouldn't even venture a guess. But the girl said, "Oh, I believe in socialism. I think that it's very important to be sociable." If I'm lying, I'm flying. She said, "That's why I'm on Facebook and Twitter,
Right.
because being social is very important."
yeah.
You talk about educational levels.
Yeah.
Remember when they used to define on the old Batman show? They used to say Bruce Wayne, millionaire socialite Bruce Wayne. They probably think that's what he was, a socialite. He was a socialist.
oh
You know-
boy.
You know, Tom, when you're talking, I can tell you something that's in your presentation you're trying to be logical and rational over something that
It's
is
not,
not
yeah,
rational
there's
or
no logic
logical.
Right.
involved.
It's
Right.
like death.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't understand death, but we have to accept it.
Yes.
And these people are not accepting the truth, and so they will always be, and, you know, you're going to come in second place all the time. I don't care about the parties, etc. They come and go, but and people come and go. But
And plus, well, you know, we were all around for the first election of our sitting president. I certainly wasn't happy about it, but
No.
I remember distinctly, and anyone that wanted to listen to me, I said the same thing. I wish him all the luck in the world.
you know,
I hope every single thing that he plans on doing that is good for our country and good for the nation. I hope he has great success and he fulfills all the promises. And unfortunately, things didn't really pan out that way.
I don't think these people comprehend that half the country was just as upset when Barack Obama was elected as they are now that Trump was elected.
Yeah.
And that half of the country would have been just as upset if Hillary had been elected. They seem to think that they're the only ones whose views count. And if they don't win, that there's something wrong, that they're entitled to win. And when they don't win, they're gonna let everybody know how unhappy they are. Well, you know who really blasted them is Captain James T. Kirk. William Shatner, I guess, put out one of these tweets or something to the effect that they should grow up and get a life. And, you know, the life is not always going to hand you what you want. And I guess they're just going after him now. They're calling him an old fogey and who asked you and what are... But he's absolutely right.
yeah.
Well,
Most of these people were nothing more than what we used to say, spoiled
Yeah,
brats.
yeah, crybabies. Yeah.
Spoiled brats,
Yeah.
crybabies, yeah.
yeah, and they don't know how to handle it. And
You're lost.
And,
you know,
and
live with
plus, people on our side of the aisle, so to speak, they don't know. The people on the other side of the aisle do not know what to do when we toss it right back in their
it.
face.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They are so upset because, oh well, wait a second, you know, you can't, you can't do that. You can't, you know. I was thinking today about the benefits of having a future president like Donald Trump, and among many things, I thought the greatest, if not the greatest, accomplishment will be to have a Secretary of Defense with the nickname Mad Dog. I mean, you gotta,
is good.
you, and I'll tell you, if that doesn't drive those people absolutely, completely, and totally insane, Secretary of Defense. It hasn't been. He hasn't nominated
but
him.
he's
But he's in the running. And just the fact that he's in the running,
Yeah.
a Secretary of Defense whose nickname, who the members of the military love,
Yeah.
and whose nickname is Mad Dog.
It reminded me of another great general, Blood and Guts. You know, George
Blood and
Patton.
Guts.
It's
Yeah.
a very similar type of nickname.
And Mad Anthony Wayne.
Mad
you
Anthony
know,
Wayne, yeah.
Mad Anthony Wayne is getting land, Chicago land from the natives over in Ohio. You know, after the battles and.
But
No.
the election was just barely settled, and already the media start again on Donald Trump. The transition team is in shambles.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah,
they-
they're fighting.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Trump tweeted like basically, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
And plus, another thing that people don't realize is Donald Trump has hired people in his career.
Right.
He's a businessman. He's gone through the hiring process and vetting process.
And what really irritates him is that he fights back. Is that he comes right back and answers them, and they're accustomed to Republicans being
Right.
punching bags. They
Right.
think Republicans are supposed to be punching bags. They're supposed to take it with a smile and not ever fight back. And
Right,
Trump
right.
is not like
Right.
that.
His tweet about the what they did to Pence, and he said, yeah, the play Hamilton
It's overrated.
which I understand is overrated.
And he said Saturday Night Live isn't very funny. The show isn't very funny.
Yeah, yeah, they don't, and see, they have absolutely no sense of humor when it comes to, right back at you. Yeah, see,
This all shows you we needed change.
We needed change.
We needed
Yeah.
change. It's just and we need it here in the great state of Illinois too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. I don't watch Saturday Night Live, but I see
I
the
do.
clip. I
I
see the
don't.
clips. I see the clips on the Sunday morning, and they showed these clips of the actor that's portraying Trump, and they're portraying him like a moron, like a dumbbell sitting there. He's got his computer asking, googling on the computer,
Yeah.
what is ISIS?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they had portrayed Barack Obama
Right.
as a dumbbell?
Yeah.
Well, see,
Can you, or if they were to portray
Or
Hillary
Hillary.
as a dumbbell?
Yeah.
You know the outrage and in the case of Obama, you would immediately be accused of being a racist.
Yeah.
If you did it to Hillary, you're a sexist, you're a
Yeah.
bigot, you're
Well,
filled
that's one of the reasons why I take quarrel with not only the news media but the entertainment industry, because a lot of people that talk about they're in fear of President Trump, they're not in fear of Donald Trump. They're in fear of what the media
The caricature.
portrays him to be, saying he's a racist. Like I said, I think I said it earlier. Before he ran for president, no one ever imagined.
No.
He was the last person on the face of the earth that you would refer to as a racist.
Yeah.
But they tried to turn him into a racist. And I think the American people are kind of getting pretty sophisticated and seeing through.
And I think this is what is really ticking the media off, is that they realize that the game is up. I mean, they threw everything at Trump, including the kitchen sink, and it didn't work. How many times did the media say, that's it, he's finished?
Yeah.
This latest remark that he's made, that's it, everybody's abandoning. I mean, we heard that time, it was like the little boy that cried wolf. It was
Wolf, yeah.
every time he would say something that really antagonized, that's it, folks, he's finished. And they're realizing everything they did to destroy him, and it didn't work.
Right.
And I think that's got them more enraged than anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't know which way to turn.
Yeah.
They don't know which way to turn.
The hypocrisy is just so overwhelming. It's like Hillary, being anti-gun, and well, that's another reason, thank God, because she would have,
Yeah.
had the Supreme Court nominees, but anti-gun, and she is surrounded 24 hours a day
Yeah.
by people carrying handguns.
Of course.
And has been for
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
the term hypocrite.
And you remember when she landed in, in Afghanistan under enemy gunfire, and she
Yeah.
bravely ran across the tarmac
Oh,
under
lie.
a hail of bullets. and,
Lie after lie.
nobody else. She was the only one to remember it. as a
She was
matter of
right.
fact.
She was named after Sir Edmund Hillary.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately,
right.
he hadn't climbed.
Yeah.
He hadn't climbed Everest
She was
yet.
born several years before he
Right.
climbed Mount Everest. but-
Right. Or she was outraged at the sexist comments of Donald Trump,
Yeah.
but I guess completely overlooked the fact that her husband had oral sex performed
no
on him
man
in-
should be
in-
near
in
the White House, near
in
the
in
Oval
yeah,
Office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was this was shocking.
Oh, God.
Where did we go wrong, huh? Or where did we go right?
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up once again. I'm John Escachoko. We're here with Meet the Chicago Historians. We will be talking about Thanksgiving, but we're having a spirited discussion of our recent presidential elections. Stay tuned.
Friends, are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. Phil will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now, his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price lists, NCR forms, sell sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And the services include 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And he also has a complete bindery service, which includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, see or call Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. And once again, they are located at Madison Street and Clarence Avenue, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And it's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, or call 708-383-3638 and ask to speak to
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Meet the Chicago Historians for the month of November 2016. We're talking about the election and soon to talk about our great national holiday of Thanksgiving. Here's our moderator, Tom McKenna.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Again, we are going to get to Thanksgiving very shortly. You know, I just heard, I think it was yesterday, I forget what news media outlet it was, but there's serious talk about, well, there was always serious talk about either doing away with or renaming Columbus Day and also renaming Good Friday. Their thoughts now, Columbus Day, to keep Columbus Day, well, it wouldn't be Columbus Day, it would be called the fall holiday, and Good Friday would be the spring holiday. But the Columbus Day detractors, they want to rename Columbus Day, I believe, the Indigenous American or Native American Day, because Columbus obviously could not discover something that was already inhabited.
He was a racist.
Right, well, right.
He was
of course.
filled with hate.
Yes, yeah. So,
You interviewed him, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was filled with hate. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
real bigot.
but
He didn't vote for Hillary either. So,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah. But again, it's the thinking goes so far beyond where the average and Ken, you were talking about common sense. It goes so far beyond where common sense would have stopped that it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, who are we offending? You know, with well, I guess Good Friday. I guess we're offending
Every
atheists.
non-Catholic.
Atheists or
Yeah.
non-Christians. You know, I grew up under the assumption, and still are under the assumption, that this basically, the country as a whole is kind of a democracy, and that the majority of the people should not be dictated to by a minority of the people. Especially, again, atheists. I don't know what the percentage of atheists are in this. Less
Very
than,
small.
Yeah, extremely small.
Yeah.
So how is it, and what has really happened in this country, where we, the vast majority of the public, are going to be dictated to by an extremely small minority? I mean, where did this turn? At what point did this really start to turn around, where we just kind of sat back and took it?
You know what, Jack, or Tom? I would think that, yes, that is a small majority that tries to turn things around, and it's our fault that sometimes things do get turned around, and it's our fault because not enough of us on the other side have the guts enough to tell it like it is.
Bill, I think that's what happened in the last election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were just so fed up
Yeah.
that they said, "Hey, I'm going out and voting. I'm not taking it anymore."
Yeah.
Well, Thanksgiving, I mean, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. This is a holiday that is based on a belief in God. If you're giving thanks for the blessings you enjoy as a family or as Americans, to whom are you giving thanks if not to God?
Yeah,
I
to
mean,
God.
you're not just vaguely giving thanks to thin air. It's based on the idea of God, and the Pilgrims were deeply religious. They were giving thanks to God for the fact that they had come through a very harsh winter, and that they had finally had a decent harvest, and that there was plentiful game and pumpkin and cranberries. So this whole holiday has a religious origin. George Washington issued the first proclamation for a national day of Thanksgiving in 1789, his first year as president. And it was all in terms of giving thanks to God for having
Yeah.
given us our independence and our Constitution and our
Yeah.
form of government and our freedoms. Abraham Lincoln issued the proclamation in 1863, which began Thanksgiving as an annual event. Up to that time, it had been sort of hit or miss, but since 1863, we have celebrated Thanksgiving every year, and his proclamation, again, is filled with references to God and to our Father in the heavens, and the
Yeah.
thanks for the wealth of our nation, the productivity of our farms and our mines and our factories, the victories that our armies have won in the field in the Civil War. So that the whole history of this country has always been intertwined with religion.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why, in God we trust.
Trust. Yeah. Yeah.
The Star-Spangled Banner has references to God in it.
Yeah.
So
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. As all of you know, I was station manager and chief engineer for WJJG AM 1530. We had a gentleman, and John, I think you know who I'm going to talk about. We had a gentleman that came on the air at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday, or Monday to Thursday. And one day while I was home getting dressed on my way to the studios, this gentleman was criticizing about In God We Trust. Was criticizing all kinds of different aspects as referring to God. And how I never got a speeding ticket going down Mannheim Road through Stone Park, only God knows. I went upstairs in that studios, I turned off his microphone, I played music, and I told him, Mr. Rob Sherman, you're out the door right now. And this gentleman had made criticisms about veterans. He had made all kinds of comments about things related, like you said, In God We Trust and the Star-Spangled Banner and all that. Lo and behold, shortly after this all happened, I find out through the grapevine that his daughter, who went to Buffalo Grove High School, put up a big complaint because they had a moment of silence and did the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep.
And caused all kinds of problems out there. Well, guess what happened to Rob Sherman's house? It got severely damaged. Paint all over the place. His bushes and his hedges in front of his house were all destroyed, and all kinds of negative things happened to him. Now, just before the election, before November 8th, there was an article, because I think he was running for something that involved Norwich and Harwood Heights. And it said that he had moved from Buffalo Grove to Poplar Grove. Evidently,
Yeah.
he couldn't take it out there.
Yeah.
Joe Gentile, who was the owner of WJJG, was a commander in the Navy for World War II. Remember that, John?
yes,
Okay.
he talked to me about it.
Yeah, okay. And I had called Joe and then explained to him what happened. He says, Joe had his own post. Joe Gentile post out in one of these suburbs, Elmwood Park or something. I says, you're going to have a gentleman like that on your radio station? And I told Rob Sherman, I says, Rob, regardless if you're an atheist, if you're Catholic, if you're Protestant, if you're Jewish, if you're whatever you are, above every human being's head in this world, there is a God. and someday you're going to answer to that God, regardless who you are, or what you believe in.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a big van with
Yes,
his
yes,
name on
yes,
it?
yes.
My,
And-
my oldest grandson went to school with him, or with his daughter, at Buffalo Grove.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And they got a really a great education. And I used to ask Matt, what because it was mainly Jewish out there,
Yeah, yeah,
and it was like the suburb of Skokie.
yeah.
And Matt said, "Oh no," he says, "everybody gets along good, and there's no talking about anything." He says, "Except for her."
You know, I have a
Well, that's where she came from.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
have a
not them
gentleman
fall
that-
far from the tree.
I have a gentleman that's right above my head, Oscar, who I've been taking care of him. He's been living with me for many years. One day he happened to be over at Belmont and Central, and he heard me talk about this Rob Sherman, and he called me on his cell phone. He says, "John," he says, "I just saw a big truck going down Cicero Avenue. It says Rob Sherman on it." And I says, "Well, God bless him." But you know, okay, I have to be very careful on things that I say here on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, because a lot of everything that is done down here goes to Ridgewood High School, which is a public school, and I have to be careful of different things that I cannot say because of it being a public school, because I sure the heck don't want have any problem to have the school have any problems.
Well, some of this, I mean, it's in the history of our country to act as though this country somehow this phrase that I do not approve of, separation of church and state.
Yeah.
It is not in the Constitution. It's not in the Declaration of Independence, and yet people always say that this is our fundamental constitutional principle. It's just something that Thomas Jefferson wrote in a letter once.
Yeah.
He used the phrase separation of church and state. The fact of the matter is, so much of this goes back. The phrase "under God" in our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, that was added in 1954. And sometimes they say, "Oh, well, that only happened 50 years ago. That was just added because of the Cold War." That phrase goes back to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Lincoln says that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. He used that phrase "under God" 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, now I just heard
There's a history to all of this.
I just heard Tom say that they want to change Columbus Day, the name to Columbus Day.
Yeah.
How long is that October the 12th been Columbus Day? For how many years? I'm 78 years old, standing right here looking at you, gentlemen, and I remember that from when I was just a little boy, Columbus Day.
It's close to it goes back to the very early 20th century.
The Italian American clubs, associations, they're not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
right.
They'll like I say, they'll get on this thing. They're not going to let that happen.
No,
what are they going to do with their parade
Yeah.
on
mhm,
October
yeah.
12th? And
And another thing, Tom, Good Friday. I grew up as a Catholic. I grew up 78 years old. I've always known the Friday before Easter is called Good Friday.
Friday.
Now all of a sudden we have to change it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
some
Well,
morons
and
figured
that's
that they
right.
would do it.
Getting back to my original statement, is when in this country did a very small minority of people, even though they're vocal about it, take control over the vast majority? For example, my celebration of Good Friday doesn't automatically negate your celebration of whatever you are.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
shouldn't, because that's one of the great things about this country.
Yeah.
But my being upset, whatever your celebrations are, doesn't mean that you have to change them because it upsets one person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a congressman from Kansas. He introduced. This is kind of funny. He calls it in the face of all of these new protests or riots, they probably should be called. It's called the "Suck It Up, Buttercup" legislation. I don't know if you've heard this.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but basically saying, hey, get over it.
Yeah.
And it
Like Captain Kirk.
and it reminded me
Yeah.
because John, when you brought up World War II, in one of the protests, I believe the one in Portland, the marchers were, or rioters, I should say, were going by the news media, and one girl yelled out, and again, if I'm lying, I'm flying. She said, "This is war. This is going to be World War II." Actually said that.
Also up in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, where I have my summer home up there. Every year, in fact, it was Saturday night when my sister and I went to church. They have right around Walworth County is in Elkhorn. The county building is in downtown Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Every year they have they have all kinds of Christmas displays and like snowmen and snow houses and candy houses and all that. It's all on the grounds in front of the Walworth County Courthouse. Last year on the corner they put up a manger on the court ground property. Well, the atheists put up a big, and it was all over the Walworth County newspaper, Elkhorn paper, every place. So you know what they had to do? They had to take the manger down. But fortunately, right across the street from the courthouse is St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church, where we go every Saturday. And there is the manger. On Saturday, when Eileen and I were at church, there was the manger.
You know, one of the problems is that very often there's no reason you can't have a manger or a religious display on public property. They say the only thing is that there have to be other things there as well. You can't put only a manger out there. But the problem is that officials are afraid of the bother. They're afraid of the lawsuits. They're afraid of so they don't put it up because they don't want the hassle. And that's how what I call the left. That's how they win, because they complain about everything and they know that most people are not going to fight. They're going to take the path of least resistance. Oh, okay, let's not put it up, and then we won't have to deal with this. We won't get the bad publicity. And unfortunately, they get their way. One of the reasons, again, that people admire Trump is that he fights back. I think this was why so many Republicans. Not that I'm trying to just make it political, but people are looking for someone who will fight back, who won't just roll over and play dead every time the other side demands something and cave in and give it to them. And I think we've got a man going into the White House who is not going to do that. He's demonstrated that he doesn't. He's
picking people that are the same way.
Exactly.
With mad.
And he doesn't care. The media's griping, and he doesn't care. He's appointing who he wants.
Yeah.
Well, that's something else that the media doesn't really broadcast, but Donald Trump got a tremendous amount of Hispanic and black votes. And they don't want you to believe that because they want to portray Donald Trump as a racist. And again, like I say, these protesters, I don't really believe that they're protesting against Donald Trump the man. They are protesting against what the media says he is. And it just flat out isn't true.
For all these months, Hillary and President Obama and everybody have been saying he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a bigot, he hates people. Well, this eventually penetrates. I mean, their voters absorbed all of this, and they think, God, this he's a monster. I mean, everybody that we admire told us he's a monster. That's the danger of that kind of rhetoric. You know, politics wasn't like that in this country. You go back, even when I was a kid, Republicans and Democrats didn't love each other, but they didn't say that if the other guy's elected, it's going to be the end of the world and the country's going to collapse. Now we're at this stage where if you don't vote the way the media says you're supposed to vote, all these horrible things are going to happen. I mean, he hates everyone. He hates virtually everybody.
I like what happened with his not giving his taxes. And the reason why he hasn't paid the taxes that everybody thinks that he should have, he followed the law. I mean, he's got auditors and he's got CPAs and all these people working for him. He's not going to screw around with that.
And you know something?
And now they're saying, well, look, he still hasn't done it. Well,
most Republicans would have caved in when the media started demanding they would have caved in, and
Yeah.
he just said, no, I'm not releasing him until the audit's completed, and move
Well,
on. Now, what's the next question?
Well, that was like when Harry Reid said that Romney didn't file taxes for 10 years,
Yeah.
which he knew was a complete lie.
Yeah.
And then when it was proved a complete lie, and they asked him about it, his response was, "Well, we won, didn't we?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows the
Yeah.
the personality of some of these people that are in politics.
We ought to maybe I think we're all going to miss seeing Harry Reid mumbling into the microphone. I mean, it's been standard for all these years to see him standing there in the chambers, the corridors of the Capitol building, mumbling something or other into the microphone.
Here's-
We still have Pelosi. Oh,
Yeah.
good Lord.
Yeah.
Nancy,
But it was
You
good.
know, I meant to bring it up before. The United States, now I see that California wants to cede,
Yeah.
and there's a couple other, was it New Mexico and Oregon or some way? They want to secede from the
Secede
United
from-
States.
well, that's like all the
Abraham Lincoln settled that issue
Yeah.
150
Yeah, I think
years
so.
ago.
well, that's like all the celebrities that said they're going to move to Canada. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Well, none of them said they're going to move to Mexico, which
No.
is kind of racist in itself.
Yeah.
And then the Canadians are saying we don't want
We
them.
don't want you.
Stay where you're at.
You were talking about the tax situation. Do you remember in one of the debates why Trump looked at Hillary and said, "You were in the Senate for 8 years. Why didn't you change the law?"
Oh yeah, that was a good. It was one of his best arguments.
Well,
You've been in politics. You've been
Yeah.
around for a quarter of a
Yeah.
century. Why didn't you do something
Yeah.
about all?
And you didn't change it because all your friends took advantage of it too.
Yeah.
And she didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
This guy Comey with the FBI
Oh,
sure
God.
took a beating.
Well, that's why Hillary lost, didn't you hear?
Yeah. all
right.
Comey's
Yeah,
fault.
because of
Comey.
him.
But they loved Comey in the spring, or when
Oh,
he
yeah.
announced that they weren't. I mean, I thought Comey they said was the greatest guy in the world when he
Yeah.
announced they were not going to recommend legal action against her. Something changed. All of a sudden, Comey became a villain just before the election.
Can he be replaced? By the way, didn't he sign a contract for?
The director of the FBI now has a term where you
right.
have 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure what the term is. It's not it was a reaction to because J. Edgar Hoover had been director from the
Right.
1920s
Yeah.
until he died.
Yeah.
Now it's a term. You can be I believe you can be reappointed to another term.
They-
But the flip side of that is the president is the head of the executive branch. He can ask anyone for their resignation. I mean, I think if the president asks for your resignation, even though you may have a fixed term, you're expected to comply because he is the head of the executive
Well,
branch.
they
of the
did that so the FBI director's job wouldn't be politicized.
Yeah.
It worked out real well, didn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did by the way, did you see the stats? The president has, what would you say, the authority to appoint or must appoint 4,412.
That's the number of appointed positions there are in
Can
the
you
in the
believe
executive
that?
branch.
And
Yeah,
is it
he's got
12?
that right off the bat.
1,272
And
have to be.
only a few of them have to be approved by Congress.
Well, it said 1,272 out of the 4,400.
Yeah, the cabinet
Yeah, right.
secretaries. There's a small number that actually have to be approved by
Yeah.
Congress. The rest of them are just up higher. But you got to compare that to the hundreds of thousands of government employees that there are.
yeah.
The president needs to have a number of people out there to get his policies enacted. One of the problems Trump is going to have, I think, is that the bureaucracy is going to try to carry on as though Barack Obama's still in the White
Yeah.
House. They're going to just try to kind of
Yeah.
ignore the
Well-
president and continue doing what they've
Yeah.
been doing.
Well,
And
my-
it's going to take some iron to actually
Yeah.
impose his will on these people.
Until he can fire somebody and say, or put
And
someone
with the
in
civil
jail.
service, I mean, you're familiar with civil service, how difficult it is to remove somebody.
Well,
Yeah.
my piece of advice for Donald Trump to show that there are no hard feelings and to reach across the aisle and make this bipartisan, I really believe that Donald Trump should welcome Hillary Clinton into his administration and appoint her as ambassador to Libya.
That's
Yeah.
That's one of the ideas making the rounds.
Right.
They also suggested Mitt Romney for dog catcher. Remember all the talk about his dog on the top of the roof of the car? The roof of the car. He got into all that trouble for having his dog on the little carrying van up on top of the car.
That's a strange situation that's developing too with Mitt Romney.
With Mitt Romney, yeah.
Well, Hillary should have taken some advice. Who was it during the Republican primary? Was it Cruz or that said told Trump you can't insult, or was it
that was Jeb Bush?
Jeb Bush.
You can't insult your way to
you can't insult your way into the White House.
Yeah.
Hillary should have taken that advice because that's all she did in the last.
I think some of them are beginning to recognize that they said the whole campaign of the Democrats for the last month was that Trump is an idiot. Trump is a fool. Trump is a sexist. The whole litany. He's a racist, and they're beginning to realize that they weren't telling people any reason to vote for them. They weren't giving people a reason to vote for them. They were just saying he's a monster. You can't vote for him. He's a disaster. So you have to vote for me.
Yeah.
And I think there's beginning to be some realization that didn't work.
That didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly on the election night, the reason that Hillary didn't come and address the crowd, she sent who was it, Podesta? that gave kind of it's not over. It's not over.
So we're going to count the votes. So go home.
Yeah, go home.
Supposedly she was having a massive temper tantrum by throwing things which. Anyone that worked in the Secret Service, as a matter of fact, the guy that wrote the book, that she was known to do that. She threw a lamp at Bill, and things like that. She didn't take it well.
I had this image of her. I was thinking about this the morning election. I said she's going to come out around 3 a.m. and say, "I want to thank the American people for electing me your next president." And then Bill kind of walks up and says, "Hillary, you didn't win. You lost." "Don't say that. I won. I will be." "No, Hillary, it's all over. Trump, no, I'm going to be the next." And they have to kind of gradually pull her away from the microphone.
Yeah, her first public appearance was her and Bill walking in the woods with the dog, and they just happened to run into a woman with her child.
Yeah.
And they took a selfie or a photograph and said, and the woman told her how
she
wonderful.
She just happened to be a volunteer for Hillary.
Yeah. Somebody said that the Hillary hiking jacket still had the price tag on it. Yeah, but again, staged when she had fell out and had to be dragged into the car in New York City, and then they came out to show how well she was, and they staged the photo with the little girl running up to her. It's a classic. You can fool some of the people some of the time, and it just played out.
It didn't work.
Yeah,
it just didn't work.
Oh boy!
They're calling this the greatest upset in American history in terms of the polls and everything. I mean, I think that would be. I think it's even worse than Dewey defeats Truman.
Wait till a few years from now, and we've got the Hamilton Burr musical now,
which is highly overrated.
We'll have the Trump Hillary review. Oh boy! Did anybody, not to change the subject, but did anybody watch yesterday, I believe it was, the Channel 11, and it had on there Catholicism and then something else, and it was a story of St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
It was very, very good.
They did one on Michelangelo, and yesterday I saw a little bit of. They did this it's a series, a 3 or 4 part series.
Okay, it's from
Church.
That Bishop Barron.
Yeah, he did Michelangelo last week, and yesterday I didn't see the St. Francis.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see the Michelangelo, but this Francis of Assisi was very, very well done and very interesting.
Well, we're coming up on our break time, ladies and gentlemen. This is Meet the Chicago Historians. Tom McKenna is our host, and we will be talking about Thanksgiving very shortly.
Do you need a carpet for your living room, dining room, bedroom, den, family room, or even your outdoor patio? Well, the place to go for a great deal is the Carpet Warehouse, located at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago, or call Carpet Warehouse at area code 773-283-0100. So remember, friends, for a great deal on any carpeting you might need for your living room, dining room, bedroom, den, family room, or even your outdoor patio, the place to go for a great deal is Carpet Warehouse at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago, or call 773-283-0100. They are just east of Cicero Avenue or the Kennedy Expressway on the north side of the street on Montrose Avenue. Carpet Warehouse, 4300 West Montrose Avenue, or their phone number is 773-283-0100. For a great deal on any carpeting you may need, 4300 West Montrose Avenue, or call 773-283-0100.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here at the John DeVita Broadcast Center for another exciting episode of Meet the Chicago Historians. It's the month of November 2016, and here is our substitute host, Tom McKenna.
Okay, we're back. Let's get into what the our topic was. Of course, we tend to wander off track. Politics seems to be a very excellent subject for our panel, but Thanksgiving. In 1621, the Plymouth colonists and the Wampanoag Indians shared an autumn harvest feast that is acknowledged today as one of the first Thanksgiving celebrations in the colonies. Now, there's a lot of speculation and rumor about how friendly the confrontation was and how much the Pilgrims were helped by the Indians, but 1621 to this day, it is probably, I would venture to say, the most American of all of our holidays. I know Christmas is probably ranks up there, and of course 4th of July, but the traditional Thanksgiving celebration in this country, I know you really can't talk to anyone and ask them about Thanksgiving that doesn't have memories, fond or not so fond, about their family celebrations and Thanksgiving celebrations. So let's take a little tour around our panel here, and Ken, your first memories of Thanksgiving with your family. As a kid, did your family come together? Did you have it? Did your family spread the celebrations around, or one family person take all the Thanksgivings?
Well, it turned out I have an older brother who unfortunately passed away, so there were four of us. My mother was an excellent cook, good cook, and we always had a turkey at Thanksgiving. But we lived in a small, little two-flat on near North Side. So we really didn't have people come over. We didn't have the space for it, But the other thing I can remember, too, is sort of just a sideline. It always seemed to be a very cold, icy winter day on Thanksgiving,
Right. Snow occasionally.
Snow, yeah, right. And but it was always a holiday, a celebration, and it was something we all look forward to, And I love the stuffing. I still love stuffing, my mother, and that was all handmade, in those days. So we did celebrate that, but and we didn't have a big family, all four of my grandparents came from Ireland, and Littles and Fords and Quinlans and Carols, the typical Irish names, So the family is sort of spread out, really. And
Well, talking about the turkey as the mainstay of the Thanksgiving dinner, from what I understand, the national symbol, the eagle, supposedly Ben Franklin politicked for the turkey.
turkey, yeah.
Ben Franklin wanted the turkey because he thought it was a Native American,
Yeah.
and I don't use that in the way they use the term Native American, but it was a bird that was native to these shores, and he felt it was a symbol of prosperity, and
Yeah.
but it was, and they go into this in the musical 1776, which I love, where Thomas Jefferson wanted the dove, the symbol of peace, and it's John Adams who says the eagle. The eagle is the symbol of strength and of power and grandeur, and they all say the symbol of America will be the eagle,
Yeah.
the eagle. But it is true that Franklin wanted the turkey to be the national emblem.
Yeah.
But John, was turning to you now, your memories and thoughts of Thanksgiving?
Well, I suppose I think probably everyone's first memory of Thanksgiving is the turkey, because that's the center of Thanksgiving. I mean, even sometimes call it Turkey Day.
Yeah.
And I, from my earliest childhood, the only meal that I ever wanted to eat was chicken. I loved chicken. I didn't like beef, and so to me, turkey was just an even grander version of chicken. This was
Yeah.
like the ultimate in the type of poultry that I loved to begin with. We would always have Thanksgiving dinner at home because my father did not want to go anywhere else. He wanted to have holiday dinners in our home. So
home,
Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, we celebrated at home. If any of the family visited, they came to us. But generally on Thanksgiving in the early days, we would be alone. We were just my mom and dad and myself. I was the first kid of my generation in my family after World War II. I was the first one to be born after World War II. I had an older cousin who'd been born in the late 30s. So I was the only child in the family in those early years. So the aunts and uncles tended to come and visit with us. But we had a grocery business. I mean, my dad had a grocery and meat market, and meat was his prime item. And I can remember when my dad and my mom and I would go out to Howard Kaufman Farms out in Waterman, Illinois, the week, and they're still there, I believe. The week before Thanksgiving, they were a turkey farm, and they had the live turkeys right there. And we would go out there the Sunday before Thanksgiving to pick up the turkeys that we would then sell in the store. And I can remember it would be a cold day very often. Sometimes you'd have to wait. And you could see the live turkeys there on their property, a big farm, and their headquarters. And then they would bring out the turkeys that we would then carry back to Hawthorne in Cicero. I remember in 1963, when the year that Kennedy was assassinated, my dad, they knew how interested I was already then in history. So my dad said, "You can stay home." He let me stay home watching all this that was going on with the Kennedy assassination, and my uncle went with him instead to pick up the turkeys. And I got one other great memory, and that is the one year that we didn't celebrate Thanksgiving at home. We went to Kansas, which I always call my ancestral state. My dad was born and raised on a farm in Kansas, and you can't get more American than that. When my dad passed away, I said that at his services, that you can't get more American than that, growing up on a farm in Kansas. We went to Kansas, and we went to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother was there, my aunt and uncle in Kansas. It was actually my aunt and uncle's home that we went to, but it was their hometown. So it's like that old story about over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. We go, and we went over rivers, we went over the Mississippi, we went through woods. So once in my life, I actually did go over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house, and they had dinner. We got there at about 6:30 in the evening. It takes about 12 hours to drive from Chicago to where my family were in Kansas. So we left at about 6 in the morning and got there at about 6:30 or 7. And they were holding dinner for us. So that's one of the greatest memories that I have, is going the whole family, my aunt and uncle and cousins and my grandmother, celebrating Thanksgiving literally out in the country, out on a farm in Kansas.
Bill, we're going around the table and we're talking about our earliest memories of Thanksgiving.
Well, and I've been thinking about this. Coming from a fire department family, we had to work on Thanksgiving many a time.
I think I worked all my Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and there was no way that you could trade because the guy that you wanted to trade with, he wanted to be home for Thanksgiving too.
Yeah.
So it was hit and miss with us. Like John said, you're talking about in the school year. I used to spend a lot of my summers at my relatives' farms in Wisconsin, Minnesota, but that was during the summer. So, we didn't do that in November. So we missed, quite a few, even after I come on the job and I got married and that. You missed those. And but we had one hell of a Thanksgiving in the firehouse. That was the big turkeys, and oh boy, and the families would come over. A lot of the guys, not all, but the families would come over, and they would stay in and at least visit for a while.
Yeah, that was a great tradition. Does that still go on?
Oh, I assume so, John or Tom. I've been out of this, for 16 years, but yeah, I think it still does. And now, of course, Thanksgiving, you're getting time and a half too. That's a holiday pay.
You want to work.
So a guy wants to work and make that extra dough too.
I know
probably even more for the families to come over.
On the police department, what we used to do, if you were in a unit that you were able to do this, you would kind of split the day up, where so that way your family either had the Thanksgiving meal early and you went into work, or they had it after you got off work. And but my earliest memories of Thanksgiving, we used to spread it around like alternate years. My two aunts would split it with my mother, but on the Thanksgivings that we had, I remember, and I maybe I was 6 or 7 years old, and I remember getting up and walking into the kitchen and seeing all the food. It was just overwhelming. I mean, the turkey would be, and I mean, we just naturally, in those days, you had one oven, and it wasn't that big anyway, so it was a real project for my mother to orchestrate taking things in and out of the oven.
Get everything hot at the same time.
Yeah, right, and get everything ready and appropriate for to serve it all at once, and then eating and overeating was kind of a ritual, and then afterwards, the family getting together and the women having their conversations and the men adjourning into another room and having a few cocktails and having their discussions. I never remember any major family fights or arguments, minor, but nothing major. I know usually every year in Chicago, being a police officer, there was usually at least one turkey leg homicide in the city of Chicago. An argument almost every year. As a matter of fact, I just happened to be in Branch 66, which is felony court at 26 in California, the day after Thanksgiving, and I remember one of the clerks there, one of the secretaries, saying to the other one, she said, "You know what? This is the first Thanksgiving I think that I worked here that we didn't have a turkey leg homicide." And then when she said, I said, "You know what? That's true."
Yeah.
And that's a fight. Someone gets into a
fighting over the
turkey.
Who's going to have the leg? Yeah.
The turkey leg. Well, that's the story about the traveling salesman who breaks down in front of a turkey farm, and he goes up, and as he's approaching the front porch, the owner steps out on the front porch, and he sees a turkey run by like 60 miles an hour. And he goes, "Holy cow." So anyway, he says to the owner, he says, "You know, my car broke down." And he's on, I've got to mechanic, a tow truck, I'll call him for you, and as they're talking, another turkey runs by. It's going about 70 miles an hour. So the guy says, these turkeys, I've never seen a turkey run that fast. And he said, I bred a special type of turkey because I like turkey legs, my wife likes turkey legs, and my son likes turkey legs. So I was able to breed a turkey that has 3 legs. And the salesman says, well, that's fantastic. What do they taste like? And he says, I don't know. I ain't caught one yet. but anyway, anyway, but I don't. When I fill in for John, I really fill in for John.
I tell you what, one of the things I did from the firehouse, and I was still working at that time when my son was killed. I invited the troopers who I knew. I knew a lot of them were from Southern Illinois, or they were from, at least not in Chicago.
They weren't home.
And they were up here. They were far from home.
Yeah.
And I would have the cook,
Yeah.
make extra,
Yeah.
and then have those troopers coming over. And I got a lot of thank yous and
Yeah,
for doing
that
it
was
for these
nice.
kids, because they were, they weren't anywhere near home, and there's nothing open for them to stop in at a restaurant anywhere, and they really appreciated it. And here, I think it was last year, I was getting around this time, and I met one of them, and he said, "Hey, are they going to have the turkey,
Like
the
open house?
Thanksgiving?" Yeah, and I did it for Easter and
Yeah.
Christmas too, and I said, "I don't know, bud. I've been away from there for a long time." He said, "Well, last year it was great." I said, "Well, if they did it last year, they're going to do it this year." And sure enough,
Yeah.
I talked to a guy the other day, and they're doing it Thursday for these troopers too.
Where at 124?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I felt sorry for those kids.
Yeah.
They were just like lost
Yeah.
on a holiday.
Yeah. Well, what my memories are, working in the fire alarm. If I had to work 4 to 12, we would eat early, and so you get the family, and then being downtown. Most of my career was at room 607 in City Hall, right above the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I used to stomp on the floor, hoping you get some dust in his coffee. Anyway, the fire companies downtown, they would always call and they'd say, "Have you got enough food?" Gee, we never had enough food. So they would deliver,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd call, if I was working like days, I'd call the evening shift and, call them and say, "Don't fill up on turkey because we got plenty of turkey here." And it was really nice. It was a real holiday.
Yeah.
The boss wasn't there. The repairmen weren't working. Companies weren't, going out inspecting and going, to the drill school and all that academy. And so it was really.
What do they do now over at the OEMC?
I don't know. I never worked over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what that's like over there.
Yeah. See, we because we were worked 24/7. We had a refrigerator. We had our own air conditioning. We had our own table and everything. So we could invite people up. And of course, we really didn't. But if somebody stepped up,
I know Bob Tinney was a good cook.
yeah.
One of the things I mentioned about when we would go out to that Waterman, Illinois for the turkeys, the interesting thing is in those days, which would have been, my memories would probably be the early 60s, early 60s and into the 60s, was that they were fresh dressed. Today, virtually all the turkeys you buy are frozen. I mean, I imagine there are fresh dressed turkeys, but everything is frozen now. It's just standard. Everything is frozen. I'm involved with a Thanksgiving raffle, and it's all frozen. But in those days, it was fresh dressed.
Yeah.
and it was wrapped, and it came inside of a cardboard box. It was almost like a chest. I think I even saved a few of them. They had little latches on them. It with handles.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was a heavy, sturdy, corrugated cardboard box. It was almost like a little treasure chest, if you can imagine. And that's how they came. And we would pack these into the, for the carriage. But it was all fresh dressed turkeys in those days. You know, and that's something that's changed since then.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember, I mentioned 1963. John Kennedy was assassinated on Friday, November the 22nd. The following Thursday was Thanksgiving Day. And I remember that Thanksgiving because I remember how dark and dismal. I mean, I don't think anyone who was not alive in 1963 can imagine what the reaction in the country was to Kennedy's assassination. And particularly to have Thanksgiving just 1 week later. You know, I'm sure Christmas in 1941 was the same way. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, it had the same effect. When we had September the 11th, it wasn't close to a holiday. I mean, if Thanksgiving had been the following week, it would you would really remember that. But in the case of Kennedy, I remember on the TV they showed the flame burning at his grave, and I'm not sure if the Kennedy family was there, but I can remember it being on television of the Kennedy's grave and the eternal flame. And I just don't think that today people have any sense of what that meant to the whole country, how the country was really plunged into mourning.
I don't think our country has really accepted that. I think we're still sort of floundering to some extent.
Yeah.
Why would someone
changed.
want? Why would someone want to kill our president?
Yeah.
And particularly a very popular guy, I mean, it doesn't,
And someone who was young and appeared to. We now know his health wasn't the greatest, but he certainly appeared to be a very strong, vigorous, healthy man. War hero, 44 years old, I believe. How could this?
But that's what our thinking of it is.
He was 46 when he died.
It's there's nuts out there which we prove day after day after day. Why would anybody want to go up to a policeman writing a ticket in a squad and
to
shoot
casually
him
walk
in the
up
head?
and in front of the police headquarters, let alone,
Well, that's again, it gets back to what we were originally talking about. You look to your leadership to kind of set the moral tone and the moral compass of the country, and the needle was pointing in the absolute wrong direction under this last two administrations. From start to finish, Obama had many opportunities to really bring this country together. Many, and he failed on every single one. He failed miserably. From the start to the fin, again, and this is just along the lines of the police. The first one out of the chute was his buddy Skip Gates from Cambridge, when his neighbor called and thought someone was breaking into his home, and it was actually his home. And the police responded to the call. And I remember Obama saying, "Well, I don't have all the facts." Now, usually,
talk about it anyway.
Here's a piece of advice for someone that makes the statement, "I don't have all the facts." Stop. Stop at that point. But he said, and I remember this. He said, "Well, I don't have all the facts, but the police officer acted stupidly."
Yeah, use the word stupid.
Yeah. Now, totally and completely. Now, even if the police officer did act stupidly, it was the wrong thing for a president to say. He was totally and completely wrong. Race relations in this country are worse now than they ever were. And it's
worst ever.
It's terrible. And to paint, the exact thing that they criticize supposedly people on the right for being prejudiced and racist, the exact same things that they criticize them for doing, they do 100 times worse.
No one is more narrow-minded or intolerant than somebody on the far left. They are more intolerant than anyone. They think that they have the only acceptable views, and if you disagree with them, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a sexist, and they go down their whole litany of all these things that you are.
And the thing
They
is,
won't tolerate anyone with a different point of
and
view.
the thing is, the police are not the enemy.
No.
It really bothers me to some of these people. Again, I think a lot of people in this last administration, I don't think they ever known a police officer. I don't think they've ever talked to a police officer. I don't think that they have the slightest idea what police officers do. And it's unnerving to hear them speak and paint law enforcement with the broad brush that they accuse us of painting certain groups with, negatively, when it just flat out is not true. There was the Harvard professor, I believe, that did a survey about police shootings, and he said everything that the media and the administration is saying about
Is
police
wrong.
shootings is not
wrong.
true.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
So again, this gets back to what the protesters or rioters now are rioting against. Isn't so much what Donald Trump is as a man, it's what the media says he is.
If a white police officer shoots a black man, race is the center of the story. The headline is white police officer shoots black offender. If a black civilian shoots a white police officer, there's no mention of race. It's just crime. It's just crime. Police officer was shot, and the police are seeking the defendant. There's no mention of race. Race has absolutely nothing to do with it, in the eyes of the media.
And the thing is, there's no shame. The media. Let's just for a second talk about the incident in Ferguson. Every single thing that the media reported about that incident, other than the fact that the police officer and Michael Brown were
In the same place at the
same place, same time. Other than that, every single thing that they reported was wrong.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, I want to, you opened the program talking about the shooting of the police officers and the fact that the administration, the Justice Department have played a part in it. I think the media has played.
Right, exactly.
They have poured gasoline on the fire by the way they've reported all the incidents. They've created this image that police are a bunch of predatory racists, and that the others are their victims. And I think it's fed this notion that police are villains. And people who are mentally off the rails to begin with are going to be encouraged by all of this and feel, well, yeah, we can go out and shoot a police officer. They're fascists, they're racist, they're brutalizing people. It's time we get even. It's time somebody gets even with them.
Yeah.
I can see how somebody with a weak mind can begin thinking that.
I tell you, gentlemen, the news media wants you to know what they want you to know about. There was only one newscaster, and God bless his soul, that told the news the way the news, and that was Fahey Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
Fahey Flynn with the bow tie, and he would say black is black, white is white, and gray is gray. It's not just what this newscaster wants Ken Little to know, or what this newscaster wants Bill to know. Fahey Flynn told it just the way it was. Right, John?
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody respected him.
And that's what the trouble is. Up in Wisconsin, over the weekend, I've heard 4 different newscasts, and every newscast was different. It's all against the police are negative. And I mean, if you have a guy come up, if I was come up to Tom with a gun, you think Tom's going to stay there and say, "Oh, go ahead and shoot me"? No, he's going to defend himself. But because Tom shot me, now he has desk duty, or he's on administrative leave because he's protecting his life. And the police officers today, do not have the power like they should. They're out to protect the people, and they don't have that authority
And the
anymore.
danger is that police officers are going to be reluctant to use force
This
because
whole-
they
That's
because
right.
they know all of the
And-
problems that are going to ensue if they use deadly force.
Yeah.
And why would anyone want to put themselves through that?
Look
ordeal?
at that gal that was beat up
Beat
by
up,
the guy.
yeah, that's a
and
perfect
and I give
example.
Johnson a pat on the back that coming out and saying
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the reason she didn't is because she didn't want to get.
Well, here's
So you don't want to be on the front page.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing has affected good police work.
It has
Yeah.
to.
Well,
It has to.
here's a little wake-up call for the news media. As much as they've tried to portray the police in a negative light, the last poll, I believe, in the United States showed almost 80% of the people in this country think positively of the police.
Yeah.
And to add to that, the only candidate running for president, I think there were a total of 17 in the Republican Party, 3 in the Democratic, the only candidate that spoke positively and made positive comments about law enforcement was Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president-elect. So, hello.
Yeah.
I like,
Hello.
and it was early on in the campaign where, and you know, it's a personal thing with me that he said, he made the statement that anybody that shoots, he didn't just say shoot, anyone that kills a policeman should have a life sentence.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah.
he had my vote right there.
Right there. Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Meet the Chicago Historians. We'll be right back with more to come about Thanksgiving.
Well, friends, winter is not that far away, unfortunately. But before winter does arrive, it's time to check the roof, siding, and gutters on your home. Yep, this is November, and it won't be long, and you're going to be seeing snow, ice, rain, and everything else on your roofs. So you might want to check the roof, siding, and gutters on your home to be sure that they are not leaking or you don't have a problem. You don't want mold or mildew in your attic or crawl space, or drip, 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 drip on the ceilings in your rooms, or have your walls damaged by a heavy, leaky gutter or bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later you're going to have to get it fixed. So give Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters a call at area code 630-616-1359. Mike Besch will drive over in his shiny red truck with ladders on top and Best Brothers signs on the doors, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters and give you an estimate and go from there. So don't have double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters for a free estimate at area code 630-616-1359. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Don't have double expense. Check your roof, check your gutters, check your sidings, and make sure everything is in good shape before the winter season sets in. So once again, Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. That's area code 630-616-1359.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is our final 30-minute segment of this edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. It's November 2016, and we're talking about Thanksgiving then and now. Here's our substitute host, Tom McKenna.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Very interesting last segment. We're going to carry it on through to our final segment. Again, we were talking about perception, politics, police, gun violence in the city of Chicago. Did we talk about our mayor's? Was that off the air or on the air about our mayor's comment about the safe city?
I think that was off the air.
Yeah, well, let's get it on. Let's get it on. Our mayor Rahm Emanuel, as a response to supposedly our new administration's policy on sanctuary cities, and for those of you that don't know what a sanctuary city is, it's a city that the administration of the city refuses to acknowledge enforce immigration laws for illegal aliens from no matter where they are. This has been in effect in Chicago for over 20 years, or at least 20 years. Because I remember when I told people that, as a police officer and law enforcement officer, you can't even ask someone if they're here illegally. It used to be when I first went on the job, they had what's called a green card, an immigration, like a resident card. You can't even ask them for that.
Yeah.
But again, our mayor, in response to that, said that they will not enforce the sanctuary city, and that he wants everyone to know that anyone in the city of Chicago is going to be safe. This flying in the face of how many people, that kind of went viral.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the comments that a public official wishes he had back, trying to portray people in the city of Chicago.
That's presumably if you duck while all the bullets are flying, you'll be safe.
Yeah. In the meantime, Mr. 700 is getting
700.
Yeah.
Every weekend.
I can't believe that.
You
700.
used to be able to look at the paper on Monday and see, what the weather is going to be like.
Yeah.
Or what. Now you look in the paper. Well,
Who got
you look
shot?
at the death notice and how
Yeah.
many got shot and how many died because
More are killed in more Americans are killed in Chicago than in Afghanistan, I'm sure. You know.
And the thing is, it's not going to stop until you put the blame where the blame belongs. You know, blaming guns. The story that I like to use is you're walking down the street and you see someone, it appears as though he's looking for something on the ground, and you say, "Hey, what's wrong? What happened?" "Oh, I lost my car keys." He says, "Well, I'll give you a hand. I'll help you look." So they're looking around, and finally he says, "Gee, I don't see anything.
Oh.
Are you sure you lost him here?" And he says, No, I lost him over there." "Well, what are you looking here for?" "Well, the light's better."
Right.
You know, well, that's the classic example of the gun violence. You know, well, what do you know? The guns aren't the problem.
No.
You know, if guns cause violence, the place in our country that has the most guns would be the most violent. I mean, it would.
Yeah.
If that's your argument.
I heard a reporter on one of these end of the week review shows a week or so ago, and he was really taken to task by his fellow journalists for saying this. He was a black reporter. He said, this emphasis on guns is wrong. He says, there are more guns per capita in Naperville than there are on the west side of Chicago. And how many shootings are there in Naperville?
Yeah.
This whole emphasis as though it's all guns is way off base.
Yeah.
It's the person using the gun that's the problem.
And plus, we have some of the strongest gun laws in the country, in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
You know, John mentioned before about the deer hunting in Wisconsin, and I saw somebody wrote an article that if all those hunters would be armed, we could really bring an army through. And you don't have anybody shooting accidentally up in Wisconsin. You know, what's the big deal with the guns?
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
safety. You know?
By the way,
it's
while we're talking about Thanksgiving, it should be noted, you mentioned about the Indians. We don't know how friendly the Indians were at the first Thanksgiving. One of the set pieces of the first Thanksgiving was a firearms demonstration. Captain Miles Standish, we all know the name Miles Standish, he was a captain in the Army, and he came along to provide for the protection of these colonists in the New World. And they had a team of militia, a small militia team, who were drilled in the use of firearms. They had matchlock guns, I believe, in those days. And one of the demonstrations they put on for the Indians was of marksmanship. So after they had their Thanksgiving dinner, they went out and did some shooting. Now, this is always reported as though this was just part of, the friendly celebration. But the thinking is they were also going to impress upon the Indians that while there may be a lot more of you than there are of us, we have these items that you've never seen before that are very destructive. And so, you might want to think twice if you have any bad thoughts about our little colony over here. So even then, the firearm has been part of American history going back to the very beginning, and the idea of the right of the right of the people to keep and bear arms can be traced back to the Pilgrims at Plymouth.
I've got a little humorous story on firearms and safety. My dad was a hunter. Whole family were hunters, and there was nobody any safer than Ollie. And that's the way he taught me, and that's the way I taught my son. And anyway, I was coming home from work from the firehouse one day, and my dad was living with us, and my son was in the room next to him, and he had been working at night, I guess, and was in bed. But when I came home, I could feel that tension. There was just a tension in the house, and I looked at the old man. And I said, "What's going on?" And he was just very nervous. And Ollie wasn't a nervous guy, but he was just almost shaken. And he said, he started to explain what it was, and I could smell gunpowder in the air. It was, the windows were closed, and with that, Johnny comes out of his room, and I could see him. He was fuming, and I said, "What's going on?" And my dad right away, I'm sorry. Well, as careful as he was with guns, I kept my .45 from the Army in my top dresser drawer, and he must have been doing the laundry or something, and he came into my room to put some handkerchiefs in the drawer or something, and he saw the .45. The only time I ever used that at the track was when I got a call that somebody was going to hit the money room. But anyway, he's got that, and then Johnny right away says, "I could have been killed. But I said, "What is going on with you guys?" Well, the old man had the .45, and he was playing around with it. I hate to say that, playing around with it and that, but I suppose he wanted to see if I had it loaded or whatever. He killed the mattress. The two shots went into the mattress and into the floor.
2 shots, holy mackerel.
And the third shot went through the wall and into Johnny's room where he was sleeping with the dog. He said, "You could have killed me, and worse, you could have killed the dog. The dog was." I said, "Pa, what in the hell are you doing? He said, "Bill," he says, "I don't know." He says, it happened. He says, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." So here's accidents happen. Accidents happen, and later on we laughed about this. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I bought a new mattress and I traded in. I said, "Get rid of that mattress." It was the one with the 2 holes in it. But yeah, those things happen, and well, like I say, accidents happen. But these shooting a cop sitting in his car, that's not an accident. This is the world's gone crazy.
And it's part of this mentality that's been spread for most of this year. I mean, this pounding and pounding on this issue of police as villains.
So it bothers me when people say, I didn't know it was loaded. I was in the military. I was a military policeman for 2 years.
You treat every gun as though it's loaded.
Absolutely, and I carried the .45 for 2 years. First thing you do is, take that. They always call it a clip. It's actually a magazine because it's got a spring on it.
Right.
And you release that, and then I was taught, to looking down the barrel, to put your thumb, where the bullet, is going to be fired from, and to see if there's a reflection there, Make sure there's not a bullet stuck somewhere.
You always think of
Should I tell this story?
You always think of Barney Fife, well, Andy, it's not loaded, and he puts it into his holster and bang, it goes through.
I guess this is the right timing. At the memorial service they had Thursday for John that I told you about, a fella came up to me and introduced himself, and he said, I went on the job. I went on the state police with John. And he says we were, close friends. And he said that I was promoted as the range master at the firing range. He says, and Johnny called me that morning, and he said, I've got to qualify, but I'm working and blah, blah, blah. And this guy says, well, come on over, and at night, and he says, I'll let you in. He says, you can qualify. Well, then, of course, this happened.
Yeah.
Johnny gets killed during the day. This guy's job then was to take John's guns. He had a rifle and a shotgun in the trunk, and all the ammunition, and plus a sidearm, and inventory them, and hand them in back to the state police. Now, this is 30 years ago. He said, Bill, he said, I have kept this for 30 years. He says, there's John's name and that, and I'm kind of looking at him, and I thought, what the heck is this guy talking about? He says, when I went to clear his gun, his sidearm, he said, I got the magazine out. He says, and then I still couldn't clear it. He says, and I took this out of it. And what I'm holding here is a 9mm hollow point that has got a big
like a
jam.
banana.
Yeah, and that's right. It's like a banana. Now, we don't know. We never will know
I've never seen one.
if that's what Johnny did. That's what he was supposed to do to stop this kid, this guy. Is he parked the car and blocked the street, and then got out with his gun to aim it at the person, to stop him.
Yeah.
We don't know if he tried to shoot him.
Yeah.
If he knew he was going to go there, and that's what happened. That this thing was jammed in there.
Right,
we
like
never
you say,
will know.
right,
But I thought, and that's what this whole thing. I was so proud of it. But this brought tears to my eyes.
Absolutely.
This guy, for 30 years, he kept this, and he
this.
says, I knew that something was going to happen, and I would see you. And I thought, and this guy kept this for 30 years.
Yeah, wow.
And we never will know what what happened.
No.
But I
Right.
thought, oh
Yeah.
boy,
It's all speculation. It looks like, having carried a firearm for over 40 years, it looks like it could have been damaged, reckoned when he wrecked the slide back, it jammed, or it could have been damaged in the accident too.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, right. That's
I've got his the gun that he kept on his ankle. He had an ankle holster, and the reason he did it was my dad's gun. It was mine, and then it was mine. I kept it, and he knew it, and then I had it it happened to get away from me in trying to subdue a pickpocket at Maywood Park Racetrack.
What caliber was it?
It's a 38. It's
38?
the Chief, it's Smith & Wesson Chief.
Oh, okay.
And, it fell, and it probably didn't even have one bounce, and somebody grabbed it and took
Yeah.
off with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I got it back out of court, the coppers did get this guy. I thought it was all messed up. You know how they do when it's a piece of evidence. The evidence guys take a diamond cutter or something. They put your name on it, and they messed it all up.
God.
So I took it to a place right in the district, in fact.
Yeah.
And they redid the whole thing, and then they,
Yeah.
fancied it up, and they put our names, or not our names, but our initials
Our
on
initials,
it with
yeah.
a K and that. And Johnny just thought that was great, so I said, "Well, that's yours, kid.
Yeah.
Yours." So that's what he wore it on there, and I've got it at home. When he got hit by the car, it smashed the gun.
Yeah.
So, but I've got it. The state police gave it back to me, and I've got that. But that's what brings back memories.
Well, talking about Thanksgiving, it's stories like that we think, what do we have to be thankful for on Thanksgiving? And
Exactly.
we certainly have to be thankful for people like John and the thousands and thousands of police officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency room personnel,
The armed forces.
and of
the
course,
military.
and of course, the armed forces that are stationed all over the world
Yeah.
who will not be able to be home with their families on Thanksgiving. Thank God for them.
We have to be thankful for the fact that we live in the greatest country in the world. And when you think of how most of the people in this world live, compared to the way we live as Americans, and we take it all, not all, but many Americans take it all for granted.
Yeah.
And they don't realize the wealth of this country, the freedoms that we enjoy, the fact that we get to choose who the next president of the United States will be. I gave a talk on Armistice Day, in which I said, in many countries of the world, you read in the newspaper, you see on television, that you have a new leader. Because the old leader was taken out and shot the day before, and here's your new supreme leader, and you don't have anything to say about it. And if you made the mistake of saying something about it, you might find yourself in jail. So we just don't have any conception of what we have as Americans very often, and how it's good that we have a day every year that we are asked and expected to give thanks for what we enjoy.
My father always used to say, having lived through many presidential elections, he always said, and it seems to kind of pan out, that this country has always seemed to elect the right person at the right time. Sometimes it's whoever is elected shows us why we shouldn't have elected him and turns the country in the opposite direction. Sometimes he is the right person for the right time. I mean, through all the trials and tribulations of this country, all the way through the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, it always seems like, basically, in the long run, the American people get it right.
A system, they talk about the Electoral College, a system that gave us Washington and Lincoln and FDR and Ronald Reagan can't be all bad. Can't be all bad.
A lot of people complain about Harry Truman. Harry Truman came around at the right time.
Yeah,
He did the right thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
You got to be tough. You got to be just a
The buck stops
the
here.
buck stops here kind of guy.
He was a tough little guy.
He's a tough-
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
he
a lot
wasn't-
of people wouldn't. Oh my God, this guy now. You think he'd drop those bombs?
Yeah.
You
And they were
know.
worried about Reagan. Is he going to be, this cowboy? Is
Yeah.
going to be,
Yeah.
My favorite story about Harry Truman is when Henry Wallace, who was the left-winger of their time, and he was in the cabinet, and he thought Truman was being too tough on Stalin. And he came in, and he was going to persuade Truman to be more cooperative with Stalin. And Truman said he sat there for an hour explaining to me why we should be more cooperative, and the Russians are just doing what's in their interest, and they're not a threat to us. And Truman says, I listened to him for an hour, and when he was finished, I said, well, Henry, thank you very much. You're fired. That was it. He bounced him out of the cabinet for that.
Just think if he would have had been vice president when FDR died.
Maybe that's how.
And he could have been.
His name was under consideration.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how our new president-elect got the name of his. You're fired.
Yeah. Right.
He had been the vice president for 4 years under,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And there were some that wanted him to continue in that.
Yeah.
I want to say one more. We're coming up on the end. There's another Thanksgiving tradition I would like to mention, and one that I enjoy every year, and it's been since the 1960s, and that's watching a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. I enjoy those Peanut specials. I look forward to that every year. I enjoy seeing Snoopy in his pilgrim hat with Woodstock, and they're helping Charlie Brown when they're trying to prepare this Thanksgiving dinner for all the kids that have invited themselves over, and they're making popcorn and toast. It's really Charles Schultz was a great American, and the Peanuts were those holiday specials that they do for Halloween, Christmas, and Thanksgiving are terrific. So I encourage everyone, watch a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Well, of course, another great Thanksgiving American tradition, Charles Schultz and Peanuts.
Yeah.
Great characters.
And I think that Christmas song, that is my favorite song. Christmas is here.
Oh yeah.
That
their
is
very
just-
first special.
Yeah, just beautiful, And
We wouldn't have that if we were in another country.
no.
And Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I enjoy watching Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade every year.
Yeah.
Right, and another great tradition.
I go down to
Someday I'd like to go to New York and see the
And see
Macy's
the-
for
yeah.
Thanksgiving and see the parade.
Yeah. I visit Macy's once a year at Christmas time. I don't go see Santa Claus. I used to bring the kids to see it, but I always buy the crystals. The Swarovski. Every year they come out with a different snowflake.
Oh.
So I have 3 daughters,
Yeah.
so I buy.
I think Chicago also has their Thanksgiving Day parade on Thanksgiving.
They do, yes.
Yeah,
They do.
years and years ago, they used to have it on a Saturday. It is the Saturday after Thanksgiving Day. When I was president of the 511 Club, they always invited us to come, and it would be on a Saturday. And then when they decided to change it to Thanksgiving on Thursday, I says, no, I am not taking members of the 511 Club away from their families
Right,
on
right.
Thanksgiving Day
Right.
to be in a parade.
Yeah.
And every time the 511 Club, our canteen or our old engine, our old Fox, if you remember, Ken,
Yeah.
always come up into the camera's eye, they go to a commercial. And I complained about that. I said, why do we have to go to a commercial as soon as we come up? So I said, no, forget about it. So we haven't been in it in many years.
Yeah.
But I just want to take a second, gentlemen, and I just, on behalf of the John DeVita Broadcast Center and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, and all the people that do their shows down here in the John DeVita Broadcast Center, Donna Sports, Wealth and Wisdom, Armchair Experts, Chicago Historians, and all of them. I want to wish everybody a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And let's thank the good Lord that we do have the happiness and the peace and the freedom that we do have in this country.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
The
John.
same to you, John.
Thanks, John. Same to you. Okay, well, it looks like we're wrapping up another great show, the Chicago Historians. I would like to leave with a final message. I know I talked about it before, but I'm still pretty excited about it. New administration, new direction for our country, and we can look forward to, hopefully, of having a Secretary of Defense that is nicknamed Mad Dog.
Doug.
God, please. Please. Please let it come true.
I never thought about that, but that sounds like a great idea.
And there was something in the in the emails about him
Yeah.
that the men under him just loved the guy.
Yeah.
They just really liked the guy.
Yeah.
I think
Like
we
a
ought,
Patton.
I think we ought to give a little salute to our regular moderator by using his term, just like on Meet the Press. They always say, if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Meet the Press.
I think
right.
we ought to. John, do you want to use his
Right,
tagline?
sure. Our moderator, John, if you're listening, we must remember that history is more than a book on the shelf.
Very good.
And you did a hell of a job, Tom.
Thank you.
Very,
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, panelists. And again, thank you for another great show, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone that is listening.
Thank you, Tom McKenna. We wish to thank Kevin of Jack FM, WRHS FM, and Smooth FM, WRWX, for broadcasting our shows over the Ridgewood Radio Network. Recordings of previous Meet the Chicago Historian programs are available for your listening via the internet at www.windycityhometown.com. This is your substitute announcer for Rich Lang. This is John Escacholco. I'll be waiting to see Tom Turkey in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. It's not official until I see Tom Turkey at the head of the parade. And the New York Police Color Guard in their traditional uniforms, the tunics, the old New York police uniform. I'll be looking forward to that. Have a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving. So long until our big Christmas program next month.
You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, November the 21st, the year 2016. This broadcast was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikondo. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, happy Thanksgiving, and God bless our country.